Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are going to conclude our chapter number 21 from the Madhya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are on verse number 146. We're reading about the opulence and sweetness of Lord Krishna. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Amita Baula An Kahite An Kahi Krishnera Madhuri Amrita Srute Yai Vahi. Since I have become a madman, I am saying one thing instead of another. This is because I am being carried away by the waves of the nectarian ocean of Lord Krishna's transcendental sweetness. So this is Mahaprabhu saying about the sweetness of Lord Krishna. He continues in verse number 147. Tabe Mahaprabhu kshane ka maun kari rahe, mane ek kari punaha sanatane kahe. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then remained silent for a moment, finally adjusting things within his mind. He again spoke to Sanatan Goswami. Verse 148. Krishnera Madhuri ar Mahaprabhura mukhe, iha ye shune say bhase prema sukhe. If anyone gets an opportunity to hear about the sweetness of Krishna in this chapter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Charitamrita, he will certainly be eligible to float in the transcendentally blissful ocean of love of God. Verse 149. Shirupa Raghunath Pade Yar Ash Chaitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishnadas, praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps, purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, 21st chapter, describing the blissful characteristics of Krishna. So let's move on to chapter number 22 now, which is the process of devotional service. In the 22nd chapter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the process of devotional service. In the beginning, he describes the truth about the living entity and the super excellence of devotional service. He then describes the uselessness of mental speculation and mystic yoga. In all circumstances, the living entity is recommended to accept the path of devotional service as personally explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The speculative method of the so-called Gyanis is considered a waste of time, and that is proved in this chapter. An intelligent person should abandon the processes of Karamkanda, Jnanakanda and mystic yoga. One should give up all these useless processes and take seriously to the path of Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's life will be successful if one takes to Krishna consciousness fully, even though he may sometimes be agitated due to having previously practiced mental speculation and yogic mysticism. He will be saved by Lord Krishna himself. The fact is that devotional service is bestowed by the blessings of a pure devotee, Sa Mahatma Su Durlabha. A pure devotee is the supreme transcendentalist, and one has to receive his mercy for one's dormant Krishna consciousness to be awakened. One has to associate with pure devotees if one has firm faith in the words of a great soul. Pure devotional service will awaken. In this chapter, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu differentiates between a pure devotee and others. He also describes the characteristics of a pure devotee. A devotee's most formidable enemy is association with women in an enjoying spirit. Association with non-devotees is also condemned because it is also a formidable enemy on the path of devotional service. One has to fully surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna and give up attraction for women and non-devotees. The 6 symptoms of fully surrendered souls are also described in this chapter. Devotional service has been divided into 2 categories: regulative devotional service, which is the sadhana Vaidhi Bhakti, and spontaneous love, which is the Raganuga. There are 64 items listed in regulative devotional service, and out of these 64, the last 5 are considered very important. By practicing even one of the 9 processes of the devotional service, one can become successful. Speculative knowledge and mystic yoga can never help one in devotional service. Pious activity, non-violence, sense control and regulation are not separate from devotional service in its pure form. If one engages in devotional service, all good qualities follow. One does not have to cultivate them separately. Spontaneous devotional service arises when one follows a pure devotee who is awakened to spontaneous love of God. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describes the symptoms of devotees who are already situated in spontaneous love of God. He also describes the devotees who are trying to follow in the footsteps of pure devotees. Let's move on to text 1 or the verse 1 of this chapter now. First verse of or text of chapter 22. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Tam Karuna Aranavam Kalav Api Ati Gudheyam Bhakti Riyena Prakashita. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is an ocean of transcendental mercy, and although the subject matter of Bhakti Yoga is very confidential, he has nonetheless manifested it so nicely, even in this age of Kali, the age of quarrel. Verse number 2. Jai Jai Shri Krishna Jai Chaitanya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 2. Eta Kahilun, verse 3. Eta Kahilun Sambandha Tatvera Vichara Veda Shastri Upadeshe Krishna Ekasar. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I have described one's relationship with Krishna in various ways. This is the subject matter of all the Vedas. Krishna is the center of all activities. Verse 4. Ebe kahe shuna abhideya lakshana yaha haite paye Krishna Krishna prema dhana. Now I shall speak about the characteristics of devotional service by which one can attain the shelter of Krishna and his loving transcendental service. Verse 5. Krishna Bhakti Abhideya Sarva Shastre Kaya Ataev Muni Gana Kariyache Nishchaya. A human being's activities should be centered only on devotional service to Lord Krishna. This is the verdict of all Vedic literatures, and all saintly people have firmly concluded this. 6. Shrutir Mata Prishta Dishati Bhavad Aradhana Vidhim Yatha Matur Vani Smritir Api Tatha Bhakti Bhagini Purnadaya Ye Va Sahaja Nivahas Te Tad Anuka Ataha Satyam Gyatam Murhara Bhavana Eva Sa Sharanam. When the Mother Vedas or the Shruti is questioned as to whom to worship, she says that you are the only Lord and worshipable object. Similarly, the corollaries of the Shruti Shastras, the Smriti Shastras, give the same instructions, just like sisters. The Purans, which are like brothers, follow in the footsteps of their mother, O enemy of the demon Mura. The conclusion is that you are the only shelter. Now I have understood this in truth. So, Mother Vedas, that is the Shrutis, sister is the Smriti Shastra, and the brothers are the Puranas. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. This quotation from the Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This quotation from the Vedic literature was spoken to the Lord by great sages. Verse 7. Advaya Jnana Tattva Krishna Swayam Bhagavan Swarupa Shakti Rupe Tanra Haya Avasthan. Krishna is the non-dual absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead. Although he is one, he maintains different personal expansions and energies for his pastimes. Purport. The Lord has many potencies, and he is non-different from all these potencies, because the potencies and the potent cannot be separated. They are identical. Krishna is described as a source of all potencies, and he is also identified with the external potency, the material energy. Krishna also has internal potencies or spiritual potencies, which are always engaged in his personal service. His internal potency is different from his external potency. Krishna's internal potency and Krishna himself, who is the potent, are always identical. His internal potency is energy, and he is the energetic. And of course, energetic is powerful than the power. Verse number 8. Swamsha vibhinamsha rupe hena vistar ananta vaikunta brahmande karena vihar. Krishna expands himself in many forms. Some of them are personal expansions and some are separate expansions. Thus he performs pastimes in both the spiritual and material worlds. The spiritual worlds are the Vaikuntha planets and the material universes are the Brahmands, gigantic globes governed by Lord Brahma. Verse 9. Swamsha vistara chaturvyuha avatara gana vibhanamsha jiva tandra shakite ganana. Expansions of his personal self like the quadruple manifestations of Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha and Vasudev descend as incarnations from Vaikuntha to this material world. The separated expansions are the living entities. Although they are expansions of Krishna, they are counted among his different potencies, purport. The personal expansions are known as Vishnu Tattva and the separated expansions are known as Jiva Tattva. Although the Jivas, living entities, are part and parcel of Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are still counted among his multipotencies. This is fully described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita 7.5. Apareyam itastu anyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Besides the inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Although the living entities are Krishna's parts and parcels, they are Prakriti, not Purusha. Sometimes Prakriti, a living entity, attempts to imitate the activities of the Purusha. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, living entities conditioned in this material world claim to be God. They are thus illusioned. A living entity cannot be on the level of Vishnu Tattva or the personality of Godhead at any stage. Therefore, it is ludicrous for a living entity to claim to be God. Advanced spiritualists would never accept such a thing. Such claims are made to cheat ordinary foolish people. The Krishna consciousness movement declares war against such bogus incarnations. The bogus propaganda put out by the people claiming to be God has killed God consciousness all over the world. Members of the Krishna consciousness movement must be very alert to defy these rascals who are presently misleading the whole world. One such rascal, known as Pondraka, appeared before Lord Krishna and the Lord immediately killed him. Of course, those who are Krishna's servants cannot kill such imitation gods, but they should try their best to defeat them through the evidence of Shastra, authentic knowledge received through the disciplic succession. Verse 10. Se vibhinamsha jiva dui ta prakar eka nitya mukta eka nitya samsar. The living entities or the jivas are divided into two categories. Some are eternally liberated and others are eternally conditioned. Verse 11. Nitya Mukta Nitya Krishna Charane Unmukha Krishna Parishad Nam Bhunje Seva Sukha. Those who are eternally liberated are always awake to Krishna consciousness and they render transcendental loving service at the feet of Lord Krishna. They are to be considered eternal associates of Krishna and they are eternally enjoying the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. Moving to verse number 12. Nitya Bandha Krishna Haite Nitya Bahirmukha Nitya Samsara Bhunje Narkati Dukha. Apart from the ever liberated devotees, there are the conditioned souls who always turn away from the service of the Lord. They are perpetually conditioned in this material world and are subjected to the material tribulations brought about by the different bodily forms in hellish conditions. Verse number 13. Sai doshe maya pishachi dand kare tare adhyatmikadi tap traya tare jari mare. Due to his being opposed to Krishna consciousness, the conditioned soul is punished by the witch of the external energy Maya. He is thus ready to suffer the threefold miseries brought about by the body and mind, the inimical behavior of other living entities, and natural disturbances caused by the demigods. Verse 14 and 15, they are both together. Kam krodhira das hena tar lathi khaye bhramite bhramite yadi sadhu vaidya paye tanrupadesh mantri pishachi palaye Krishna bhakti paye tabi Krishna nikatayaye. In this way, the conditioned soul becomes a servant of lusty desires, and when these are not fulfilled, he becomes a servant of anger and continues to be kicked by the external energy Maya, wandering and wandering through the universe. He may by chance get the association of devotee physician whose instructions and hymns make the witch of the external energy flee. The conditioned soul thus gets into touch with the devotional service to Lord Krishna, and in this way he can approach nearer and nearer to the Lord. Purport. An explanation of verses 8 to 15 is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrit Prabha Bhashya. The Lord is spread throughout the creation in his quadruple expansions and incarnations. Krishna is fully represented with all potencies in each and every personal extension, but the living entities, although separated expansions, are also considered one of the Lord's energies. The living entities are divided into two categories: the eternally liberated and the eternally conditioned. Those who are never liberated never come in contact with Maya, the external energy. The ever-conditioned souls are always under the clutches of the external energy. This is described by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita 7.14. Daivi hi aisha gunamai mama maya duratya. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. The Nitya Bhattas, or the conditioned souls, are always conditioned by the external energy, the Maya, and the Nitya Muktas never come in contact with the external energy. Sometimes an ever-liberated personal associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead descends into the universe just as Lord descends. Although working for the liberation of conditioned souls, the messenger of the Supreme Lord remains untouched by the material energy. Generally, ever-liberated personalities live in the spiritual world as associates of Lord Krishna, and they are known as Krishna Parishad, associates of the Lord. Their only business is enjoying Lord Krishna's company, and even though such eternally liberated persons come within the material world to serve the Lord's purpose, they enjoy Lord Krishna's company without stoppage. The ever-liberated person who works on Krishna's behalf enjoys Lord Krishna's company through his engagement. The ever-conditioned soul, provoked by lusty desires to enjoy the material world, is forced to transmigrate from one body to another. Sometimes he is elevated to higher planetary systems, and sometimes he is degraded to hellish planets and subjected to the tribulations of the external energy. Due to being conditioned by the external energy, the conditioned soul within the material world gets two kinds of bodies: a gross material body and a subtle material body composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. Due to the gross and subtle bodies, he is subjected to the threefold miseries: adhyatmic, adhibhatik, and adidaivic, miseries arising from the body and mind. Other living entities and natural disturbances caused by the demigods from higher planetary systems. The conditioned soul, subjected to the threefold material miseries, is ceaselessly kicked by Maya, and that is his disease. If by chance he meets a saintly person who works on Krishna's behalf to deliver conditioned souls, and if he agrees to abide by his order, he can gradually approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Verse 16. Kamadinam kati na katidha palita durnideshas tesham jata mayi na karuna natrapa trapa nopashantihi Ustrichyatain atha yadupate samapratam labdabudhis tvam ayatah sharanam abhayam mam niyunkshavatama dase. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unwanted orders of lusty desires. Although I have rendered these desires so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve them, nor have I have even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and now I am giving them up due to transcendental intelligence. I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these desires, and now I have come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. Purport. This verse is also quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 3.2.35. When we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we are saying, Hare, O energy of the Lord, O my Lord Krishna. In this way, we are simply addressing the Lord and his spiritual potency, represented as Radha Krishna, Sita Ram, or Lakshmi Narayan. The devotee always prays to the Lord and his internal energy consort so that he may engage in the transcendental loving service. When the conditioned soul attains his real spiritual energy and fully surrenders unto the Lord's lotus feet, he tries to engage in Lord's service. This is the real constitutional position of the living entity. This is so beautiful. I will read the meaning of this verse again, where Prabhupada in the purport has told us the meaning of Hare Krishna Mahamantra so nicely again. This verse is also quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.2.35. When we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we are saying Hare, O energy of the Lord, O my Lord Krishna. In this way, we are simply addressing the Lord and his spiritual potency, represented as Radha Krishna, Sita Ram, or Lakshmi Narayan. The devotee always prays to the Lord and his internal energy consort so that he may engage in the transcendental loving service. When the conditioned soul attains his spiritual energy and fully surrenders unto the lotus feet, he tries to engage in the Lord's service. This is the real constitutional position of the living entity. Verse 17. Krishna Bhakti Haya Abhideya Pradhana Bhakti Mukha Nirikshaka Karma Yoga. Gyan, devotional service to Krishna, is the chief function of the living entity. There are different methods for the liberation of the conditioned soul: Karma, Gyan, Yoga, and Bhakti, but all the others are dependent on Bhakti. Verse 18. Esabha sadhanera ati tuchya bala Krishna Bhakti vina taha dite nare phala. Without devotional service, all other methods for spiritual self-realization are weak and insignificant. Unless one comes to the devotional service of Lord Krishna, Gyan and Yoga cannot give the desired results. Purport in the Vedic scriptures: stress is sometimes given to fruitive activities, speculative knowledge, and a mystic yoga system. Although people are inclined to practice these processes, they cannot attain the desired results without being touched by the Krishna Bhakti, devotional service. In other words, the real desired result is to invoke dormant love for Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6 states, Savay pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetuki apari pratihata yatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation dharma for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Karma, Gyan, and Yoga cannot actually awaken love of Godhead. One has to take to the Lord's devotional service, and the more one is inclined to devotional service, the more he loses interest in so-called achievements. Dhruva Maharaj went to practice mystic yoga to see the Lord personally, face to face, but when he developed an interest in devotional service, he saw that he was not being benefited by Karma, Gyan, and Yoga. Verse 19. Naishkramyam api achyuta bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanam alam niranjanam kutah punah shashvad abhadram ishware na charpitam karma yad api akaranam. When pure knowledge is beyond all material affinity but is not dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it does not appear very beautiful. Although it is knowledge without a material tinge, what then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the beginning and transient by nature? If they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord, how they can be attractive? Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12. Sorry, it is first canto, 5th chapter, verse 12. Even after writing many Vedic literatures, Vyasadeva felt very morose. Therefore, his spiritual master Narad Deva told him that he could be happy by writing about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Up to that time, Srila Vyasadeva had written the Karma Kand and Jnana Kand sections of the Vedas, but he had not written about Upasana Kand or Bhakti. Thus his spiritual master Narad chastised him and advised him to write about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore Vyasadeva began writing Srimad Bhagavatam. Verse 20. Tapasvino dana para yashasvino manasvino mantra vidah su mangalaha kshemam na vindanti vina yad arpanam tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha. Subhadra Shravase means whose glory is very auspicious. Those who perform severe austerities and penances, those who give away all their possessions out of charity, those who are very famous for their auspicious activity, those who are engaged in meditation and mental speculation, and even those who are very expert in reciting the Vedic mantras are not able to obtain any auspicious results. Although they are engaged in auspicious activities, if they do not dedicate their activities to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I therefore repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose glories are always auspicious. Purport. This is also a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.17. Verse 21. Kevala Gyan Mukti Dite Nare Bhakte Vine Krishna Mukhe Se Mukti Haya Vina Jnane. Speculative knowledge alone without devotional service is not able to give liberation. On the other hand, even without knowledge, one can obtain liberation if one engages in the Lord's devotional service. Purport. One cannot attain liberation simply by speculative knowledge, even though one may be able to distinguish between Brahman and matter. One's liberation will be hampered if one is misled into thinking that the living entity is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, one's fall down again into the material platform because considering oneself the Supreme Person, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is offensive. When such a person comes in contact with a pure devotee, he can actually become liberated from material bondage and engage in the Lord's service. A prayer by Bilva Mangal Thakur is relevant here. Bhaktis tvai sthiratara bhagwan yadi syad daivena nah phalati divya kishora murtihi muktihi swayam mukulitanjali sevates asman dharmartha kam gatayah samayah pratikshaha. O my Lord, if one engages in your pure devotional service with determination, you become visible in your original transcendental youthful form as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as liberation is concerned, she stands before the devotee with folded hands, waiting to render service. Religion, economic development, and sense gratification are all automatically attained without separate endeavor. This is from Kṛṣṇa Karnamrita 107. So we'll continue our reading from verse number 22 of the Madhya Lila of chapter 22, Madhya Lila chapter 22 of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.